If you hear and see a woman acting, leading, driving, and you, not necessarily by intent, but there's a chance that you would have a bias that she's bossy, directed or something, I really would like us to try and take on the glasses of changing her to a male just on the spot and then think, would we really think the same about a man? And if we could all do this more, I think there's some places where we simply wouldn't, draw an opinion, an unnecessary opinion. So it's maybe less of a myth, but more of a behavior thing. Goes for anyone. It also goes for myself. I also listen to women and may see them in a different light than if a man had been standing there. So I also need to take my own medicine, and I do that. But that's the one way we change our perception, and I think we need to change it.
Welcome to Her Perspective, Women Who Inspire. This podcast will inspire you with personal stories of women who have followed their own unique path to success. I'm your host, Astrid. As a career coach and mentor, I support women on their professional journey with hard experience and plenty of practical knowledge. Having spent many years as a leader in the tech industry, I know the challenges and opportunities firsthand. My mission? To empower women to step into their careers with confidence and create their own path to inspire others. Today's theme is a CFO's perspective, life and leadership. And as always, I will start with a brief introduction of our guest. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Line Fandrup, a trailblazing CFO, strategic thinker, a true role model and a friend. Line is currently the Group Chief Financial Officer and Executive VP at NKT, where she leads the finance team at the forefront of the green transition. She is responsible for a business with a turnover of 3 billion euros and approximately 650 employees. Line holds a mathematics and financial master from the Copenhagen Business School. And I first met Line in 2015 at INSEAD during the transition to general management program, which we both attended. The time we spent together at INSEAD with all our lovely fellow students was nothing less than incredible, at least for me. Full of learning and networking. It's hard to believe it's already been 10 years since we met. The good thing is that we are all still connected around the globe. Line lives in Denmark and is the mother of 2 wonderful daughters who I have also had the pleasure of meeting. In this episode, I will talk with Line about her exceptional career journey, and we will also dive into what it really takes to balance ambition, leadership, and motherhood. So let's jump in. Line, welcome to Her Perspective.
Thank you very much, Astrid. It's really nice to be here.
Oh, it's such a real honor. I said it already to have you here. And so what I would like to start with is talk a little bit about your career and leadership journey. So what has your journey been like in a male-dominated industry? As you know, this podcast is around inspiring other women. And it's also around how you survive these male-dominated industries. Can you recall a moment when you left or when you felt particularly aware of being the only woman in the room?
It's nice to actually reflect over these things. And I'm surprised that over 20 years has passed. And luckily, a lot of things changed in 20 years, not due to me, but due to simply also how we perceive going into the workplace and collaboration and communication, all of this. So it has been very different from when I started to now. It actually has more or less always been very male dominated. It still is, I have to say, but I think the tone has changed, which just accommodates a bit more ease on women that steps into these some of these industries with heavy engineering and construction and all that. I think one way you can see really physically on me that things changed was I was a all suit girl, white or blue shirt, fully straightened hair. And today I'm a all red curly nail lackish dresses all over the place kind of woman. And if you ever want to spot something simple, at least that's something to look at. But I would also say really that what I contribute with today is very different because I allow myself also to speak up with a different position in the room, a different voice, talking on behalf of minorities in general. I wouldn't only say female minorities. I've realized over the years that I, for many, represent a minority, no matter which kind of it is. And that's actually been a nice finding for me, realizing what kind of difference it makes for people to see me in the room. And I think there's been a lot of moments where I realized I was the only woman. And I think there's been a lot of times where I actually held myself back a little bit, not saying what I thought because I felt what I was thinking and wanted to say was a standout compared to the 9 other voices in the room. And then depending on where you are in your life and with yourself, you will question are you the odd one out, or what is the general or maybe the real truth here. And that definitely has changed for me. Luckily, I would say, because that has allowed myself to be more authentic. But if there's one example I'd like to share, it's actually really with the diversity and inclusion agenda changing so much in the last 5 years. And, you can have the best of HR people coming in, facilitating the discussions, bringing up examples. But I think people change when it becomes a little bit more personal on topic.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this one management team member, and we were like the top 10. I was the only one. It's within the last 5 years. And it was very new for us to talk about, especially the inclusion part. What is it? Because if we're getting, for example, female in, but they don't feel included, why don't they? And, I have the best colleagues here in KT, so I won't blame them. But I realized when we were discussing this, and I wasn't saying a lot, realizing I know how this feels, but it was difficult to speak up. So simply I listened to my colleagues, and then I realized they don't know. They really don't know. And it's not because they don't want to, but they don't know. And then I decided, I took a deep breath, and I could sense the blood rushing in my veins because now it was getting personal, because I wanted to share my examples. And I wanted to make sure we fast forward the realization that it is there. And it's not something HR is telling us, and we can use logics to try and tell that it's not difficult to be included as a minority. So I felt I had to take it all in. And then I spoke up, and I gave some examples of the parties or the after alcohol and these things where things just happen if you're a female minority. And I'm sure other things happen to other kind of minorities. And the room got dead silent. I can imagine. Did I ruin it, or did I help it? And it was kind of awkward, but it changed. Ever since it changed, I just realized we are being much more sensitive in our ways of trying to understand this theme than before. And I really think that makes a difference also in how we go out into the rooms and understand really how people could be feeling in a room that we lead, but where maybe the day before we didn't think about that one person who may be feeling not included. So I was actually really happy to do that, but it was very remarkable being in that room that day, speaking up.
It's so interesting what you're sharing. I was just reading a book, it's in German, When the Last Woman Leaves the Room, and it's written by 2 men. And they also talk about this, that men are often not aware. They if you ask them if they remember a situation where they have been discriminated or because of their gender, they cannot give you an example when this ever happened. And so I think what you just
did is exactly that, making them more aware. And because it was personal, even though it required you to step out of your comfort zone, way out of your comfort zone, I think that's why it was then more than just a statistic or any research that has been done. And like I'm always saying, these beautiful posters with colorful slogans on it. It's not, we talk about a culture, so it takes more than that. Yeah. Thank you for that example. That's really a beautiful example. So now you are the Group Chief Financial Officer. So you are part of the C-suite of NKT. And together, I have researched a bit with Kira Johnson, the Chief Human Resource Officer. You two are the only women. And then there are 11 men.
Yes. Yes.
So even though you just said it, that it's now different and that you are now, of course, I mean, you have an important role as a CFO. You speak up, you have your part, your responsibility, but still, how does it feel when you enter the room and there are these 11 men? How is it? Just because for our listeners, I think they cannot imagine how it is.
And I think it's more similar to something that one would know from a lot of other places, which is sometimes, my anecdotes are very practical, but I think when I share it, because it is pretty simple, but it also says something about where we are. So when we come into that room, right, how do we greet? Do you greet different when you're a woman than when you're a man to a man? I think that has actually been taking up some space in my mind in terms of, do I shake the hand or do I kiss the cheek? Or
oh, yes.
Yeah. It starts that moment. And I think over time, I'm just laughing a little bit more about it if I do one way or another, and I can see I'm changing, right? But then it is different in terms of how do we debate. And I think in KT and probably other industrial companies also, and maybe all companies, I don't know. At least some days I feel like it's more an opinion exchange. I'm thinking about politicians sitting with a button they have to push, and then they say, I believe, and then they push the button, done, right? And then I'm like, okay, but then we have, 12 people just saying what they think. But where did the co-creation happen? So I think what I really have offered, and sometimes they look puzzled at me, like, is he trying to sneak me or manipulate me? Because I ask questions. So I like, that's interesting you say that. When you say that, could you say more about this part of it? And then they're like, no, this is a trap. No, not always, but then I can sense it's uncommon to ask questions rather than the powerful my opinion is. But I really do this because I feel that the more I understand of others' opinion, the more we can actually drive the better solutions. So I think there's lots of men that also would do this, but I also think in some of the strong, the companies where it is a little bit the male way of expression and concluding, this is a new. So in a C-suite, for sure, I've had many of these different ways of approaching it, but I also would say we're changing. We changed style over years, and that's really nice, I think.
Yeah, so it really had an impact that it's now at least a bit more diverse team. I mean, it's 2 to 11 it's like in my old days, we were 7 to 1. And so I still remember that. So do you also think that the expectations from the whole company, from your teams, the employees in your reporting lines, are there any different expectations for female leaders?
I'm pretty sure there is. It's not very outspoken, but I come across it. I think there's actually surrounded by a lot of very capable people. So it's not the what I see the most, but I do see these implicit expectations that I should be a little bit more soft, I think, in my approach or in my way of leading and I don't mind to be soft, but I'm also super business driven. So if we're running fast and doing a lot of things, I'll probably primarily be business driven. And then when I look around, my colleagues are very business driven. And sometimes I realize they will probably get away with a little bit more of that way alone, where I have this, at least as a perceived expectation, that I also have to be the more nurturing, caring. And if I'm too tough and too competitive and too something, then she's a tough one, that Line. Oh, that's a kind of directive or bossy. And I'm like, if you just painted me in a male color, would you say the same actually? But I think this is probably at the end of something. Generations are really changing, so I think in the future it will be much less.
Yeah, and I think that it's important that we talk about it, because that's also something that I think that a lot of male colleagues are not aware of, that they have these different expectations. And yes, if a woman is more direct or giving really clear guidance, immediately she is bossy, it's or too bold. I've heard that also, where I've never heard it in related to a man colleague, that he was too bold. If he is like that, then he is like, okay, very straight, and he knows what he wants, and he's focused.
Yes.
So have those expectations then shaped a bit how you presented yourself?
I don't think to a very large degree, because I also, and you know me, Astrid, I am, Line. Somehow I cannot cover up and be something very different from my authentic self. But I think what I have been aware over years is I'd like to first make sure people hear me and they don't get, let's say, confused about my actions or the way I speak or how I dress. So I think I do tone down, let's say, a little bit maybe of me when people don't know me well. And then over time, I just gently turn up the volume on the full Line. So something is there, but it's really because I also kind of very deliberately, I think I took a choice. I want to pave the way for other women. I don't want to be let's say, the one that splits the water. So how do I prepare companies like NKT for those behind me, rather than splitting us now? So I will be trying to be the oil on the water, changing a little bit to circumstance and making sure we get used to this. So it's going to be easier for those behind.
Yeah, that's really I think the role of the generations now in leadership of females, what they play is really helping the generations to come to step into a world that is a bit more open for diversity and less, like we always say, I mean, all these diversity programs, the goal is achieved when we don't need them anymore.
Yes. That's a nice way to say it.
Yeah. So, so we already talked a bit about it, but how do you see your leadership style different from your male peers, if at all?
And that's a good question. And I don't know if it's a gender thing or not, but I think I like to empower a lot. That doesn't mean I don't have opinions. It just means that I like to develop people by having them try and think themselves and come back. I think my male colleagues sometimes they feel more urged if they know what they think is the answer, to drive that direction into the solution immediately. And I think it's also very effective. So you really have to be mindful on when you choose either or. But if time allows, I will rather try and get people to drive a task by designing it and owning it than me saying, I want it like this. So I think this is it's today at least a difference, but I can also see, for example, my boss, he's also rather having others drive it. So I think it's also a little bit of style, and especially really with generations changing, and I don't want to be age discriminating, but we grew up in different times with different leadership, and that's still in the workforce today. In the team of NKT, I think we span early 40s to just above 60 out of the 10. Which means what we were taught to be leadership just looks pretty different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think that's in general a bit of a trend that we see, that there is a different style. So yeah, thank you for sharing. And do you feel that your presence as one of the first ones, one of the first a woman in the leadership role that you're in right now, has helped to shift the culture a bit? You had that example at the very beginning. I think that was already an example.
Yes. I think it has. And it's not only me shaping, it's really also that we in that 10-person group become more enlightened by a lot of topics, because you can also hear we have age diversity, we also have national diversity and other. So when we allow to present a little bit of the personal in that room, we become more aware of differences. And eventually when we go out of that room into the teams, we actually bring more knowledge and thereby better leadership, I think. I think it's subtle, but I know it's in there.
Okay. Yeah. I think so too. So, your role requires you to work long hours. And so our theme is also that life and leadership. So let's talk a bit about life and leadership. So it requires also resilience in many ways. And so what does resilience mean to you?
That's a really nice question. Resilience. And I don't think you should be just thick-skinned or tough-minded, or I really don't think resilience about that. I think I changed quite some since my mid-30s. I think out of a realization that I had to, but also just with life changing around me. I do think for me, one of the best go-tos over the last 10 years has really been Stoic philosophy. And that will stretch it a little bit far. But today I reckon how little is about me and how much is about everybody else in their lives, or in the current business environment, or with their families. That gives me more resilience, because I don't worry to the same degree when I'm receiving emotions, challenges, some kind of vibe or feedback that can seem either tough, too direct, or someone is upset. I don't worry as much that it's about me having done something wrong, me not being good enough. And if you can remove that layer, actually what stands there is then your own belief in you, doing the best, contributing with what you can, and then there's circumstances and you're not in control. So how to let it go? I think that's what grew most on me the last 10 years.
That's a very beautiful perspective. I think that, a lot of pressure is really coming from that layer. And if you're able to remove it, it's great. Thank you for sharing this perspective. And it grew over the time. It's something that we learn. Yeah.
Well,
can you share a time where you overcame a real challenge, and looking back, what has helped you the most? Was it people, mindset, structure, society?
It's been challenges in life, I feel.
Pick one if you like. I mean,
yes. because you can always choose something at work, right? But somehow I also want to say that figuring out what kind of mother you want to become.
Yeah.
I don't want necessarily calling it a challenge, because it's not something you overcome. It's something you're in every day. But it is, again, something to settle around yourself. And being, I think most challenges you have to not just try and lean into and drive through one-eyed and say, I'll get through this. I think most challenges, the bigger ones at least, that you have to overcome, you have to lean a little bit out in perspective. And then another nice book I read, and that many have read, is this, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah.
And the number 2 rule is you have to think about the ending. And when you want to overcome a challenge and you then think about the ending, sometimes choosing which end you want to pull to overcome the challenge is quite helpful. So then I can decide, both in a challenge, how important is it to get it really right? What can I let go to just get it roughly right? What does that then mean for my own, let's say, engagement into the topics? So the children are really good example. They're teenagers now, as well, I can tell you. Challenge almost every day, right? So will I decide to have that long conversation over this topic that I felt, you didn't respect me? Or will I believe that your core values are the right ones? So you didn't mean to upset me or make me worried, and you do respect me. I think in all the challenges of every day, these are some of the ones I actually try to navigate by. Be mindful at the end, and did we do the right things along the way? Then probably this challenge will also, by time and process and being relaxed to a certain degree, it will sort itself out.
Mm-hmm. Not to jump into every challenge or everything that is not going the right way.
Yes.
It's also a perspective on the very moment. It might look totally different in 5 days and not as important.
Yes, exactly. And that's a really good point. It's about in more days, because the jump into action is very tempting for a lot of people that are result driven and are in the workplace. But a lot of times it may not be the right course. So I think I preached to myself some years ago, sleep, eat, exercise. Repeat. This helps me not to jump into everything and try and sort it out on the instant.
That's a great bridge to my next question, which is really about how you manage the pressure at the executive level, but also the expectations for being a mother, being a good mother. Do you have any habits, like you just said, or exercises, mentors, anything that you rely to get through these sometimes very busy times and challenging times?
Yeah, I do think sleep, eat, exercise, as simple as it may sound, is a go-to for me. It took me some time to realize, when you have for me, if I have inner turbulence, it's a little bit back to the Stoic. Is it about the others or is it about me? And most often it's about me. I'm a pretty balanced person. So when I'm not balanced, I have to look within. And usually I can fix most by sleeping, eating, and exercising. And maybe if the really tough ones, over a couple of days, right? But I really practice getting as close as I can to the 8-hour sleep. Running, I think around, and it's not I don't want to make, this is not the path for everybody. There's a lot of ways you can get that flow in your mind and ease the pressure. I just run. And I'd like to run every day if I could, because there's just reflections flowing to me, and some are gone when I'm over it. And it just eases my everyday. So this is habits, and it's also habits that, even if there's the birthday of someone or my daughter is something, it's something I have to do, and my family knows and understand, and they rather send me off to a run and get me home happy and kind of mindful again afterwards than they'll keep me and have me tense and kind of bugged by something.
Yeah, that's so nice. And yeah, I remember when we were running at Seat in Fontainebleau, half successful, I would say. I mean, there was we were having a good intention to do something, and that was really something. It stayed with you. It didn't stay with me. For me, it's art to relax and get my mind freed up again. So, like you said, it's for everyone. It's a different. It's different what it is, but it's important that you have something, some kind of a habit, be it an exercise or a hobby or something that helps you to get back to who you are and just have some me time as well. It's important.
Yes.
Thank you. So we are now already in that part where I also wanted to talk to you about work-life balance, because that is the overall theme also. And so what does balance look like for you right now? Are there any non-negotiables? I think we already talked about it in your daily or weekly routine.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty strict in terms of preserving space for me. I remember when I got this job offer, it's 5 years ago, when my kids were early school age, and the classical worries of everybody. Won't you just work more? How can you make this? How about the children? All these kind of questions. And I had that in me. It was not something I invented. I will not work more. I'm already working a lot. I will use those hours in a different way. And if I'm not living up to others' expectation, they may decide so. But I will not question if I am. And that corner flag simply allows me to, I'm not perfect, right? It doesn't always work, but it works, I think, 80% of the time. When in doubt, then I'm doing my best. Do I think anyone could do it better? Maybe, maybe not. But I'll not worry about what others think. I'll just continue doing my best. And when I leave for that school thing or to being with my partner, I know that I'm catching up the hours at some different place or different stage. So I won't worry that, what would they think if the boss leaves at 3:00? I just do it. I have to say I'm a little bit the odd one out sometimes. But again, I'll just accept that I then stand out if that paves the way from others. And as long as I realize I'm contributing, I can see on others that I'm doing what the company needs, then I won't question it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that requires a lot of courage to live that way, to say like, okay, I might not live up to the expectations of others. I mean, we are in a world where a lot of people think that perfectionism is all. It's the only thing that counts. If you want to have a career, you need to be perfect and you need to be there around the whole day. And I remember what big debate we once had in a leadership team about having people leave early, and they let them just leave without a comment about, hey, do we have a half day off or something like that? Yeah. It's meant to be funny, but it's not. It puts pressure on these people. And in the end, when you, like you said earlier, when you have a team where you say like, okay, this is the goal and I let you go, you choose. I will at the end measure this goal, where you are and where you landed, but the way how you got there, and if you do it 9 to 5 or 9 to 3 and 5 to 8 or what, yes. I think a bit that Corona helped a bit with the home office, partly at least. But the best way at that time in the leadership team, what we said was the leaders need to be the role models. Yeah. Because if you are doing it, immediately people in your teams feel less like in the spotlight if they leave one day early because of a, I don't know, afternoon appointment with the kids or something.
Yes, I agree to that, Esther. It's really important. And just seeing that kind of diversity also in terms of how can you be a leader, that also just gives talents that would not choose it because they feel that that's the limitations of it. Maybe the reflection, I could also do it if I did it like that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It will make that leadership role or give it a different view from the outside that you can still have a life.
Yes. Yeah, which we really want, won't we?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we are humans, so we want to have a life as well. And it's yeah. So yeah, thanks. Very insightful. Thanks for sharing. So in Germany, we tend to look at our Nordic partners, so the Nordic countries, neighbors, as role models when it comes to diversity or gender diversity in specific. And I looked up some data, and Denmark is often number 3 when it comes to gender diversity measured by the EU. So what do you think? Or I don't know if you can compare it, but how is it? Is there anything specific what Denmark does to support women in their career?
I think there are things that Denmark is doing well. And then I think Denmark is also realizing that there are things that others are doing really good. So we are upping some things. But I think this work-life balance thing has been a theme in the 20 years I've worked, which has just meant, at least for my 10 years, where I had 10 years with a company that was very much engaged in the new trends, modern work-life leadership that would kind of embrace that. And I felt very supported throughout those 10 years, where I also had my kids, in terms of having my kids, coming back to an attractive job, still getting promotions, salary increases, being praised despite being off with two children. I don't know if this is particular Nordics, but at least I think the gender equality also in the home, that it's a little bit about the structures that society offers. You have a choice. You can share with your husband or partner if you want to, and it's common. I really think that's also something. One thing is what structure offers. Another thing is what's common and would people do it, right? So I think there are different things that support in Denmark that women can choose to have a career if that's what they want.
Yeah, it's true. When I read about Denmark, I also saw that you can choose that the man stays at home for some time after you give birth to kids, and so the parental leave. We have that as well in Germany, but it's not common yet. I mean, I know some who do it and it works, but it's still not common. I think we need to have more examples, good examples where they just do it, and it takes time.
Yeah, and actually one example that maybe I could give is also I work a lot with in an organization where we both have Swiss and German offices, and I think and maybe it's already getting outdated, Astrid, then you have to excuse me. But there is a certain expectation that the women would want after childbirth and not going back full time. And, I respect any kind of personal choice. But if it's a kind of embedded expectation in society, it may be really difficult and maybe structurally impossible to make a different choice. And I think there we could be hindering some women to actually make a different choice.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I have many examples of young women who wanted to go back to work after they gave birth, and then they are seen by the society as women who chose career over family. And I think that's the thing that we need to change. And it might be different from the countryside to the cities. And I, like I said, I also do see some others examples where men stay at home, do parental leave for a year even, and it's all good and accepted by society. So there is a change, but I think it still takes a little bit more time. Talking about your daughters, so what message do you want to pass on to your daughters related to career?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think also having had the opportunities I have had, I really see also some of what made the difference, but I also see, of course, what you give up, because you have to give up something in life. So I really tell them they can do whatever they want, and I truly believe and I would help them realize how can they learn, how can they develop, what opportunities can they grab at different times, for them to understand the vast opportunities that exist. But I also tell them, you don't have to. If you don't want, you don't have to. I really tell them, don't become me just because you think that's the only way. No, there's a lot of ways in life, and moms is moms, and you may do something else. But never let anyone tell you that you can't do it. If you want to, you can.
Yeah. So what do you think they see when they watch you work and lead and in your life?
Yeah, it's a little bit these days. It's hard to say because I hardly believe that's maybe not but I actually called my eldest this morning before preparing for this, and I said, Astrid, she wrote this. She probably will ask me a question. Mom is, how would you close that sentence, Carla? Then Carla said, Mom is amazing. And then I said, but then tell me, why am I amazing? Because I also know where I'm not amazing, right? I'm not perfect. And she said, it may be you're not here always, but when you are, you just spend all your time helping us getting wiser, learning new things, being capable. It's just amazing. And then I said, I maybe didn't do the cake that often Friday afternoon for the friends and these things, but I think they realized by this age, which is of course different than a baby, what did I then contribute with, and really in this part of their life, they really see the impact of that, how it helped them.
Yeah, what a beautiful day, or what a beautiful way to start the day by just calling your daughter and hearing all this. I can imagine.
Yes. You also get a lot of non-praise, so but it's nice when you hear it.
Oh, very nice. So, I cannot leave you to not talk about INSEAD.
Yeah.
So when we were there and before that, I heard from colleagues, INSEAD is going to be life-changing. Looking back, what impact did that experience have on you, on your leadership, professionally, and also on you as a person?
Yeah. But it was life-changing, wasn't it?
Yeah. In a way, yes.
I'm still thinking, it was 2 times 2 weeks. How could that be so, let's say, life-changing? You're the best, Astrid, and we met a lot of great people, but I still don't fully understand how everything came about. But I think for me personally, and I guess everybody has their personal journey into what was life-changing for them, if it was. I think for me, it's been the 10 first years of my career. I had been very strong in financials. I've been very driven. I've been very strong coming. I had my girls. They was pretty small. Life was just really also a hassle every day getting to the next thing. I think INSEAD, or I know, it took me a little bit out of that. So I saw myself, my life, me and my job outside in. And I didn't realize it very explicit, like wow, okay, new me. But the way we were taught, the way we reflected, I realized that I wanted to go back to being more holistic, more strategic, more visionary, more thinking about bigger things than just chasing every day something. And I think it grew on me by inset and afterwards. Thinking, I remember this blue ocean strategy, and I remember the teacher we had there. And I remember, this may sound a little bit odd, but him saying, "You're just skin cells. We're just skin cells." And I like, "You're just skin cells." I couldn't hardly reflect about it, right? But then
I don't remember that, but
no,
okay.
remember, it was really this thing about this span of life. You're here on Earth. It's just a small thing, you know. The whole system around you, above you, it's much bigger than you can ever imagine. And how you also pay it forward. And I think that gave me a feeling of being humble, being reflective about that chasing every day is an incremental thing in your life, Line. But what if you start by being mindful about the ending again? Then you may choose to pull on a different rope. And I think my journey pulling a different rope started there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So was there, you just said it was this skin cells. Was that specific moment or an insight that stayed with you over the years?
I think it's one of the few quotes, except also, I must say, and the ratio in terms of negotiation, creating win-win. Those two stayed with me in terms of how I perceive myself, but also how I want to be a part of this life on Earth. Win-win. Believing in something that's bigger than myself and being here for the reflections and about the long haul. I'm not sure everybody took something so philosophic away, but I really did. And that was life-changing somehow.
Yeah, for me, it was the value creation. So creating value for your customers. So, and I used that all the time in sales and in marketing when I had, my dear engineering colleagues who were excited about a new feature. And I said, okay, it's a great, great feature. What value does it bring to your customer? Yeah. Why should they care about it? And so that is something that stayed with me. Yeah.
It was good. It was really
good. It's unbelievable that it was only twice 2 weeks and some cohorts in between. And so, but so much to reflect on and take with, over into the career that followed. So another thing that we took with, into our career from INSEAD is the network.
Yes.
So did the INSEAD network or the community play a role in your development afterwards?
Yes. And I should actually have mentioned that because it did. And one thing was the people, but also it was really the conversation we had. Coming into a group of, 30 or something, maybe a little bit more, I was the breadth of nationalities and perspectives in that group. It was really wide. And having that reflection about yourself, your country, in a grander perspective, and really having people share openly about where they come from is certainly also something I took away with me. That's very practical, The Economist, to read that and relate to the perspectives beyond my own kind of circles. And I still to this day read it and appreciate it. And a lot of people would read Economist also without going to INSEAD. But for me, it was an awakening again. So then we have our WhatsApp group. And though it's less than it was 10 years ago, having that sense of a community out there of people who you would be able to reach to any day, that's also, making life bigger than just your everyday. And I really like that also.
Yeah, true. Yeah. So it's, for me also, Economist is directly connected to INSEAD. Yeah. Because that's, and, yeah, and also the fact that there were so many people from different parts of the world and very different cultures, from Saudi, from Japan, from we had South Africa or
Yes.
Madagascar, and so really broad.
Yeah.
And seeing that we have so much in common as human beings.
Yes. Awesome. Yes.
We have more in common than there is difference.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was also one of my highlights.
Yeah.
So we're almost at the end of the interview part, and more to come after the interview part, but coming to an end. So what is one myth that you would like to debunk about women in leadership?
I think maybe I'm going back a little bit here, because it is really this about, if you hear and see a woman acting, leading, driving, and you, not necessarily by intent, but there's a chance that you would have a bias, that she's bossy, directed or something, I really would like us to try and take on the glasses of changing her to a male just on the spot, and then think, would we really think the same about a man? And if we could all do this more, I think there's some places where we simply wouldn't, draw an opinion, an unnecessary opinion. So it's maybe less of a myth, but more of a behavior thing. It goes for anyone. It also goes for myself. I also listen to women and may see them in a different light than if a man had been standing there. So I also need to take my own medicine, and I do that. But that's the one way we change our perception, and I think we need to change it.
Yeah, true. So, cannot agree more. So the tradition is also that the last two questions are always the same. So one is the best career tip or advice that you have ever received, and how did it help you grow?
I could say more of what I said before, but one that I haven't mentioned, and I have to say also, I visit a coach regularly, and he's super good, and he's not a softie, kind of just pat in my back, and he's really there to also have a big baseball bat and say, look in the mirror, now you something, stop yourself. Because I think what sneaks in on me, actually I think it sneaks in on many high-performing people, if I dare to call myself that, is a bit of insecurity. It's a bit of a friend it's a fellow on the way to start with, who will kind of question you. Is this good enough? Are you good enough? Do you really think you can do this? And he taught me to look at this not as the devil on my shoulder, but as the friend on my shoulder. And I don't have to listen to the friend. I may listen, and then I'll decide otherwise. So I had a leader. I had many good leaders, but I remember I felt daunted to tell her one evening where we were working late. I said to her, but sometimes I just feel like I'm an imposter. When did I realize that I'm not that good? And then she said to me, we all feel that, Line. And that was really kind of, wow, she was like a star in my eyes. And I realized I was having this feeling and was not alone with it. And then having these talks with my coach over and over, I just see this friend on my shoulder will always be there. I may listen, but I will not believe. And then I'll decide what is my truth.
Look for the facts, for example.
Yes.
We call it, or I call it, the saboteurs. That's the coaching term for it. The judge is the prominent one, always telling you, you're not good enough, and I told you before, and why did you do that, and so on. Nice, thank you. And the last one is, so if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
This is coming a little bit back. So I think it's let go.
Let go.
They do like you. Sleep, eat, exercise.
Okay. Beautiful. No, it's, I like it. And I think that's a perfect way to summarize a lot and says it all. Okay. So now the last part, or not the last part, but the next part is about rapid fire questions. And so I will give you some questions and you just answer spontaneously what you think, what you like, and just to get to know you a little better. So we start with heels, sneakers, or slippers while working from home.
Slippers.
Morning routine must have.
Oh, showering, coffee, and a very nice breakfast.
Me too. City or forest?
Forest.
Running or yoga?
Running.
Yeah, no surprise. Reading a book or watching Netflix?
Reading a book.
Book or e-reader?
I'm listening actually most often. So that's maybe your e-reader. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, me too. In the meantime, novel or a business book?
Business, or not business, maybe personal development. I think that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I love those too. And international food or local food?
Local food.
What's the favorite one?
Depends on the country. I always go for something on the menu I have no clue about, but it's local.
Okay, perfect. A fancy restaurant or a food truck?
A fancy restaurant.
On stage or off stage? Or behind the stage?
I think on stage, which is a little bit special, but I do get a lot of energy for that kind of performance activity somehow.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And work from home or office energy?
Office energy.
And what's your leadership superpower, do you think?
I think it's authenticity, authenticity. Oh, no, I can't say it right.
Yeah, that's true. It's very important. And what's harder, budget season or bedtime with kids? Well, your kids are old enough, I think. But if you remember or look back.
I'd rather do budget than tuck in 3-year-olds.
Email or Excel?
Email.
One Danish value the world should adopt?
Humbleness.
And we said it already. Your daughters would say mom is?
Amazing.
Beautiful. Let's just finish with that. I think you are amazing. So you have smart daughters. Next up is the coaching snack. So it's also a tradition that I ask my guests about a recommendation they have. Books or TED Talks or podcasts. What is your recommendation and why?
I really get a lot of inspiration from many things, so I could have chosen many, but I chose one book that I read, I think coming out of Inside very much, actually. It's called The Code of the Extraordinary Mind. And it's written by Vishen Lakhiani. It's a book that teaches you some of the ways to lead a non-conformist life. And it's not because you want to be different, but it's because maybe, let's say, the culture, the societal structures, the family structures that you came into, that you need to question it. And you need to, actually first you need to become aware that they exist and that you live by them. And then you want to change them to live your life. And I think the awareness about those structures is a great thing for anybody. You don't have to change, but the awareness will teach you something important about how you live your life. It's a great book.
Yeah, I need to put it on my list because this one I haven't read yet. So thank you for that tip. It's also one for me. So I will put it in the show notes as well as the other one, the seven habits of successful people.
Highly effective people.
Highly effective people. Exactly. I put that also in the show notes so that people can go back and order it as well. So with that, we are at the end of our session, our interview. Yeah, Line, thank you so much for participating, for carving out the time for this interview out of a very busy schedule, I know. And it's been a great honor and pleasure to have you here. It was very insightful, lots of food for thought also for me to take with me, and I'm sure that also our listeners will take a lot out of this conversation. And thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Astrid. It was a pleasure. It was also interesting to reflect, right, on all these things. So I certainly also take something away with me. And I'll just look forward to listening to the coming podcast also, and who you'll be talking to.
Thank you.
And to all of you listening, if you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world if you left a comment, shared your favorite takeaway, and hit that subscribe button. Subscribing really helps me grow, helps with the algorithm, and even more importantly, it helps me bring even more inspiring women to the show to share their stories with you. Thanks for being here. And I can't wait to see you next time. New episodes land every other Tuesday.